Good morning. It's Monday, March 30th at the 42nd Annual CALLERLAB Convention, and this is the session called Class Connections. My name is Eric Henerlau, and my panelist with me is Skip Cleland. Thank you all for joining us today. This session is being recorded, so we ask that if you have questions or comments or just any input at all, please use a microphone. We have the microphone here. Thank you. This session is about new classes and about what has to happen in a new class to make sure that your classes stay with you. Part of square dancing, part of the thing about running classes in square dancing is we, of course, must attract people to come in the door to try square dancing. And then we have to attract them to want to maybe sign up for some lessons. And so they'll sign up for some lessons to do that. And then, with any luck at all, they complete the lessons and join the club and go on from there and become lifetime square dancers. That's our goal, right? But even if we have them for a short time, that's a good thing too. So many times I've seen beginners start into classes and have a good time with the actual square dancing, but the chemistry isn't there with the club or the other class members or the caller or whatever it is, and they decide to stop square dancing because it's not fun for them. And they enjoy the dancing, but something about the people or whatever it is, they didn't feel included, or it wasn't some connection in the whole social group area. And in so many ways, it's a travesty because we actually got them in the door, which is a huge hurdle. We got somebody in the door. We actually got them to start taking some lessons, and for some reason they dropped out because there was no connection with everybody else. They just didn't feel part of the whole group. Okay, so as I said in the abstract here, it's a good thing. This presumes you have a class started and you have people in the class. It's a good thing they're on the floor and they're dancing. What can we do? What can you do as callers and dance leaders to really connect with those people to make sure that they feel included and happy and excited to come back every week? Not just for the square dancing, but to see you and to see other dancers so that this is their big thing they look forward to every week. That's what you want to make sure that they do. What can we do to make sure, as much as possible, we give that experience to the dancer? That they want to come back, not only is it great square dancing, but it's great people. And we always talk about square dancing being great people, but how do we connect that out with people in such a way that people don't feel excluded? Or maybe they're a little socially introverted. There are a lot of people who are very socially introverted, very quiet, and they don't always, make friends easily. They don't know how to do social conversations or cocktail chatter, those kind of things. So how do we make sure everybody feels included? Because they came into the class, we like them having there. How do we make sure we keep them on and make them part of the club? That's what this is about. Specifically, I'm talking to callers, and since most of you are callers or related to a caller, what is the caller's role in all of this? And traditionally, it hasn't been that, in the past, it hasn't been as much of a caller's role as it's been a club role. Clubs have a whole committee about, managing beginners and about having a hospitality group or a beginner class coordinator or something like that, where the club is responsible for making sure the beginners are included. I still hold that's true, that the club is responsible for making sure that the beginners are embraced and included. But I think even more so these days, it's important for the caller to have that responsibility for many reasons. One, the clubs aren't as strong as they used to be overall. Now, I'm not talking about maybe you have a big, strong club or whatever, but a lot of clubs are smaller and not as strong as they used to be, and they don't have the leadership skills that they once had in the past. So if the club doesn't have those leadership skills to understand what it means to really bring people into the group, then it becomes more incumbent upon the caller to provide that leadership, and that's what we're talking about here. Second, it really matters to the caller. I don't know how it is for you, but it matters to me to have as many bodies on the dance floor as possible. That's a very important thing to me. I want to have a lot of people out there having fun. That's what I really want. I found out talking to some callers that's not necessarily the number one objective, but I'm talking about beginner classes. When I do a beginner class, I want to have a lot of beginners out there. Now, Some beginners are not going to be strong dancers or whatever. We have all those issues. But I want to have a lot of beginners out there. And over time, things will change and some people will drop out or whatever. But really, I want to include as many and give everybody a fair chance at coming into square dancing since they walked in the door and have a great time there every week. That's my objective as a caller. So this session, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about some of the different chronologies and doing a class from beginning to end, and where we as callers connect with the dancers to make sure that we're figuratively holding their hand and embracing them and taking them all the way through the process. So that's my overview. And do you want to give you an overview on your side, Skip?
Pretty much what he said. Actually, we'll just go ahead and get started with something real quick. Gary, Wade, you cannot answer. How many of you, in the course of walking into this session and joining us up here, have established any kind of a personal relationship with the two of us? I mean, since you walked in the door. Yeah. Neither one of us stood back there and greeted you as you came into the door and welcomed you to the session or anything like that. So you've developed no personal connection whatsoever with us. Just a simple handshake establishes the groundwork for that personal relationship that you want to build with those new people. They want to feel welcome, and you took the time to stand back there and welcome them to your session. So there's right there a thing that's very simple, easily overlooked, but very valuable.
I remember Jerry Helt doing that in a session last year. I can't remember exactly what the session was, but he and his wife stood at the door and greeted every single person who walked in the door. I remember that. It's very, very, very impactful. So this interactive, I have some ideas, and I'm going to give you the ideas on these things, but I really want your ideas too, because like this morning's session on brainstorming, this is really a collaboration of ideas, right? I don't have all the answers. Skip doesn't have all the answers. We're just really kind of moderators to make you guys think and pull the answers out yourself, okay? The only reason this sounds formalized is because we have to be on the mic for the recording here. But I really want it to be casual, and I want everybody to come up with something. Everybody should come up with something. When I look at the chronology of our relationship with dancers, I think of pre-class, like before they are dancers, these people that we want to have become dancers. We've got an introduction night. We've got all the weeks of the class that occur. We have the special dances, or whatever they might be called in your area, that they're dances outside of class, like some special dance during the class. We have the graduation, or end of session, whatever it might be. And then after that, ongoing relationship with the dancer, to keep them coming. So that's kind of the points I look at, the relationship you have with a dancer, someone you don't know at all, to somebody who becomes, a lifelong dancer that you hope to see at every dance that you call for, right? You want to see them. So in the pre-class, this is pre-class, before class, these are people who are not square dancers yet. What do you do? What do you do to think about that? Now, obviously we talk about advertising and marketing. We hope the club does their part in getting people, all that stuff out there too. So we depend on the club in a lot of ways to get those dancers in there. That works to a point. If you've got a good, strong club that can generate good classes, that's great. If your club isn't that strong, where do you fit in to bring people in the door? Now, I know that Scott's got some ideas. He's got some good plans he's done over in Pennsylvania. And Rick's done some great programs in the Central Valley, too, about how you reach out to people to bring them in the door. As a caller, it's really, really important for me to bring in as many square dancers as possible. I work in collaboration with my club to make sure that we get as many beginners as possible. One way I do that is I keep a list of every potential square dancer that I have that could come into my class. So I've got people with somewhere have expressed an interest. I've got this spreadsheet, their name, as much information, a phone number, email, most important, email address, anything else, maybe the city they live in, whatever. And every time a new class comes up, I'm sending emails out to these people to let them know about it. So I've got an email communication tree for these people. And once in a while, they come back and they say, yeah, you know what? I couldn't do it last year because of blah, 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 but now I can do it. I'm really glad you sent me an email. So I keep that list. Why is it more important for me as a caller to keep that list than, say, a club officer? Club officers change. Club officers will change every year, and they go over. But you typically are there all the time, right? So you're the one constant factor. So if I maintain that list, I have control over it, and I'm gonna make sure that it gets out every year to go solicit people. So, do you have something you want?
With tagging into that, not only keeping that list of who's attending your class, noticing who's missing, a quick email. A lot of people don't like the phone, just don't like the phones anymore. They like that impersonal contact that gives them the opportunity to formulate a response. And then they'll come back with it. So that email out to that person that you've noticed is missing, you're not really, you may not get them back right now, but like you said, next year, you encourage them to come back whenever their schedules are better. Again, back to the club idea, how many, just a real quick hand show, how many are caller-run clubs? How many are member-run clubs? I'm sorry. Good, y'all are paying attention. The caller-run first. Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 caller-run clubs. Okay.
Okay, member-run.
About 13 or 14
Okay,
member
good.
run.
We almost got the full total of the members and people in the room. Good. Okay, so if it's a caller run, you have a little bit better situation in that you're absolutely in charge. Okay, you do your class the way you want to do your class. You contact your people the way you want to contact your people, or you're having someone do that for you. Okay, club run is a little different in that you're an employee to the club. However, those of you who said you are teaching for member-run clubs, how many of you absolutely, without question, run your class your way?
And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
That's just another step of being in touch with those people, the spreadsheets we're talking about, and knowing what you're going to do, how you do it, what's worked well for you. Some of these people learned how to dance last year. Some of you have been teaching anywhere between 20 and 30 years, and I think in that time frame you've developed a few techniques that work pretty good for you. So, again, when you're looking at this, the type club you're working with, look at how you want to manage it and make sure that everybody is on a level there that says, I'm the teacher and I'm in charge.
And so, because I said this is interactive, I want at least one person to come up here now and take the microphone and give you an example of how they might reach out to people before a class starts. Anybody have any ideas? You don't even have to come up here. He'll bring you the microphone. Here, Rick's got an idea. Please state your name and where you're from.
Rick Hampton, home. Oh, you mean Visalia, California. Okay, sorry about that. One of the things that's really important when you're reaching out to people is, if I were to say Amway to you, what would you think? Amway. Oh, God, thank you. Okay. A lot of people hear square dancing and they go, oh, God. It is what it is. If you've asked somebody once or twice and they have not really said, oh gosh, I'd love to do it when my shift changes, leave them alone for a while. Don't make people start avoiding you. How do you do that? For one thing is you participate in social media and find or start square dance related stuff. Eric runs the Facebook group, something along the lines of Square Dance in Northern California, or words to that effect. I run one called Square Dance in the San Joaquin Valley. I also have a couple for specific groups, and what's nice about that is you can send people to that. You post something on a social media, and if you get a hit back, hey, I had kind of interest. Well, add them to your local area group. Send them an email. And I don't know if I buy into the phone call thing. I certainly wouldn't want to call somebody repeatedly. But I think that human, because one of the things I do is that human. Hey, I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. Is everything okay? That phone call. And then also just one thing that works once you get them in the door is first night, please don't let anybody wear square dance clothes. Please don't let anybody wear a club badge. Okay? You can get the same, whatever the new dancers are going to have, the little peel and stick things. Everybody in that room, including the caller, should have a peel and stick badge. You know why? Because then nobody knows who's who. There is no caste system. There's no anything like that. So everybody gets in there, and then you visit, you mingle, you greet them at the door, and then all of a sudden you get started. And, oh, the dude in the blue shirt's the caller, and, oh, she must do something. Obviously, the treasurer is going to be identified, but they got money and they're loved anyway.
Thank you. Oh.
Sean Brown from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. One of the things that we do for our club to get in touch before classes or things like that is a lot of our members, we have them all in a, we get all their phone numbers and things when they come in the door. And one of the things we'll do is, like you said, they don't, like along with the emails, we send text message alerts out to all of our members and all the people on our list before the class, and a lot of the time that gets them out. And even the experienced dancers, the older dancers, like them because they like the reminders and things like that. And I also use social media for our club purposes and things like that. So a lot of that has a lot of success. So.
Alan Riggs from Centennial, Colorado. A couple of the callers and cuers in our area are using social media advertising through Meetup, and they are posting community dances, which include round dancing and square dancing and contra dancing. And they're starting to get a group of people that are interested in it, and they'll come out and try it, and then they have advertising for the various classes, various dance forms available at that event.
Sue Dellery from Salina, Kansas. In Kansas, every year at our state fair, we have a booth at the state fair, as well as we do a demonstration on one of the main arenas. And at the booth, if you walk by and show an interest in square dancing, you write down your name, phone number, email. And then the president of the club in that town will go through the list, find out where somebody lives, and send it to either the club president, or if they know that there's a caller in that area, they send it to the caller, which for me, it's usually me in my area, and make those phone calls, and I keep those names and send them something, or send them a letter, or send them, call them up and say, you showed an interest, but you were busy last year. You got free time? No, not again. I said, okay. She says, but keep me in mind. So I'm like, okay, I'll let you know next year again. So that's what we do.
So the general message here is everybody ahead of time think through what you need to do to get people interested, generate that I want to get involved, and give them the vehicle to get there. And once you've got them, stay in touch with them. Don't lose them.
Hi, it's Scott Brown from Pittsburgh. And Lisa, one of the things that really helps us is, Rick had mentioned that a lot of times people, when they hear square dancing, just like Amway, they run. But one thing that, believe it or not, has really helped is every year at the county fairs, we have this team of horseback square dancers. Lisa runs, called the Gold Rush Riders. And they go out on horses, and they perform every day at the fair on horseback, and modern Western style square dancing, and it's just, believe it or not, it's wonderful advertising, because people who come there and see that, when the show's over, they actually go crazy, like, how do we learn to do this? And that's really interesting that you do this on horseback. And then it's up on YouTube, and then at the end of the week, we have a dance at the barn. It's a modern Western style square dance, and last year we had over 9 squares of people come through that barn in a matter of 2 hours. It was just crazy. And these were just all ages, and they just all got involved in the dance. They just all wanted to dance. They didn't see it as square dancing.
That's great. When somebody asks you, how do I get on your email list? The only thought that should go through your head is how you can never get off my email list. Because once somebody has to get on, you want to capture that name until they say, get away from me, right? I believe me, you don't want to spam anybody, but you want to make sure that when your classes come up periodically that you let them know. Okay, it's a good thing. Introduction night, or the first night of class, or whatever you want to call it. You know, your first night of class, or your introduction, your freebie, or however you want it. The first night that somebody shows up. So here's your class starting right now. Yes? Well, okay, we'll come back to that. Okay, so the question was asked, what is the rationale behind freebie nights? We're not going to discuss that part. We're not discussing the economics. That's a different session, economics. I encourage you to attend that one as well. The introduction night, or the first night. So this is the night when everybody walks in the door, right? And they don't know anybody. They don't know you. They don't know the club members. They don't know anybody. They might know a friend or two, but that's it. So when they walk in the door, what do you do as a caller to make sure that their experience that night is the best possible it can be? Now, obviously, you're going to try to do a great program and entertaining and square dancing and calling and teaching a few things and having fun. Hopefully that's what you do, and not just try to pound something over their head with don't anticipate. But, actually have there are callers that do that. But, really have a good time with them. And that's what I try to do. I try to make sure that this is like they walk out going, man, this is like the best night ever. That's what I want their experience to be. I try to elicit that for them. But in addition to that, in the breaks, I'm down there and I'm shaking everybody's hand, and not insincerely, like trying to do that, but I want to get out there and make sure I make a connection. Look at them. Look at that stick-on name tag that Rick mentioned, that everybody's got one. And oftentimes I have a stick-on name tag that first night too, because then I'm kind of like one of them. I'm not just somebody on a stage. And then, do you have a sign-in sheet? Make sure everybody's got a sign-in sheet at the front door. So maybe your club officer is doing that sign-in sheet. And in that sign-in sheet, not only are you capturing their name, but you want to capture at least 3 more pieces of information, maybe 4. The city they live in. I don't care that you have a full address. That's kind of personal. Ask them where they live. But I want to know what city they came from. That might be relevant, right? Because where do these people come from? Maybe a phone number, but I absolutely want that email address from them, right? Okay, so they showed up that night. So you have a name, a city, a phone number, an email address. That's all I want the first night. Make sure you can capture that. Somebody's captured that information at the front door. And the reason for that is because you're going to follow up with those people. You've got now their phone number and email address, and you want to make sure you have that information. It's good there. So when you're out there, you're going to do a personal greeting when you walk in the door. When they walk in the door, you're going to mix and mingle all throughout the evening. Make sure after everybody, how's it going? Hey, did you have fun with it? Oh, this is really crazy. You get all the the usual things that people say. Is yeah, and you laugh it off. Yeah, it is. It's crazy, but it's like fun and it's like really wild and all that. And you kind of go with them, kind of go with the flow of what they're feeling, right? And then, of course, at the end of the session, whatever that session is, as they're leaving, make sure you not only thank them profusely from the stage for coming out, invite them to come back next week, make sure they're clear about that, invite them to bring their friends next week, because probably you can bring their friends in next week as well. Because you had a great time, bring your friend in next week. It's even more fun that way. And then, as you're getting off the stage and it's break time, thank them as they're walking out the door, shaking hands, thanking them for coming. Really, that one-on-one connection you cannot be overstated. That one-on-one thank you and shaking hands is so important for everybody coming in the door. So these are my first night, things, and that actually bleeds into the future nights too as we get more people in the door. You got to make sure that that's happening. So those are my thoughts on the first night. Do you want to add something to that, Skip?
You've got them in the door. You've done your homework. You've got their names. You've put everything together, and you've got this really helpful bunch of people in the room with you that they're wearing sticky name tags also. They're club members and such and everything else. Have you ever had a discussion with your club member what your expectations are of them when they participate in your class as angels? How many of you have just told them to go look it up on the web and read it? Okay. I wrote my own. It has a lot of the same stuff in it, but I have things in there that are my expectations that I expect from them if they're going to be out on the floor dancing with the new dancers, because what they do on the floor has as much, if not more, impact on their fun as what you're doing. So I let them know what my expectations are. Again, this is part of that upfront working. You've got your list, you've got the names, you've got your emails going out and everything else, but you've also level set with your dancers that here's how I run my program, and this is how you can be extremely helpful to these new dancers, and they will want to come back. Not so much beat on them to say don't do this, but let's encourage them. Let's make them feel welcome.
Does anybody have any other things they want to add for the first night, intro night? We're talking about just the intro night. Go ahead.
One of the things, Gary Felton, Maryland, one of the things I always try to do in the conversation is after I've made them feel a little comfortable, I want to say, it's great to see you. What brought you here? So I want to know the advertising media that did it. And then I shut up and listen, because that'll open a whole conversation. Could go on for a long time. But I try to get to every new person in there with that question sometime during the first night, because I don't know which of my advertising techniques are working, and this gives me a better idea.
There's someone else? I brought that up because that's important for the first night, for that they understand what your expectations are from them. There's some out there that are just givens. Don't teach. You're not there to teach. Don't push and pull. Don't put people where they belong. Your job is to be where you're supposed to be and be confident. Just get out there and dance. Like everybody in the square knows what they're doing. You just make sure you're doing it right and let everybody else learn if they're working. And if there's teaching that needs to be done, there's only one teacher in the room. Another one is whenever I put the music on and we're going to start the next session, don't sit out and wait to fill squares. Be the first ones on the floor. Put 2 angel couples out there in a square and then let the new dancers come in and fill it in. That's a couple of them right there that I put out and published to them. You'd be amazed. They all got this idea that, we're here to fill in where we're needed. No, you're there to get everybody up on the floor and get them dancing. Anybody else have anything else unique that they have to that? It's just to sit down and go through what you've seen over the years teaching. What are the mistakes that angels make? And blame yourself for not covering that ground with them ahead of time. I had a hand over here.
Chris Day, Manchester, England. If you have your lessons on a different night to your club, be very careful that the angels don't say, hey, when you finish lessons, it's a different night. Because some people can't do that night. And you have lost them, even from day one. They're thinking, where the hell do we go? Do we carry on doing lessons and lessons and lessons as angels? Or do we just quit now?
There's another hand.
Rick again. You had mentioned that when you were describing a little bit of your angel talk, one thing that I always tell the angels, by the way, we do this, at least I do, well in advance of the class. Don't do this in front of the class. But is to remind the angels that the goal is not that square, that time, that night. The goal is to making sure these folks understand the call, because when we're up there, and if we have more than one square in front of us, we might be looking to the square on our right while the square on the left gets repaired by an angel. And since we don't see commotion, we never know about it. So if you are angeling, I tell the folks, if you're out there, and there's a problem, say, let's go up after the tip and ask Rick. And your break time, one way to socially interact with these nice people is if you've got a square in front of you that has done wonderfully, stick your head in there during the thank you and say, you guys did a great job that time. Visit a little bit. Conversely, if a square was having a lot of trouble, say, hey guys, let's take a second here. And what I do is I will pick somebody and I'll say, Deborah, dance with me for a minute. And then we square up and we show whatever it is. And then again, great job. We just, it's got to be, they're scared. They don't feel comfortable because they don't know a whole lot of people. And the first people that they're going to love or not love is the caller.
We found this to be very important. Scott Brown from Pittsburgh. Sorry. He was pointing at we found this to actually be very important a few years ago. But when you have your open house night, your introduction night, don't have it on a Tuesday and then say, come for lessons on Thursday. Our lessons night is Thursday night. Because if they're there on Tuesday, it's probably because they have that night free. And if you're telling them that your lessons start next Thursday, they probably don't have that night free. And if some of them do, you're still going to lose half of them because the half of them don't have that night free. So if you're going to have an introduction, make sure you do it on the same night that you're going to do your lessons so that people can come back the following week. Otherwise, you're really making it hard on yourself.
So we've successfully gotten through the first night.
We got them in the door. We got through the first night. They've signed up for lessons, classes, whatever you want to call them, right? They're in. They're in the class. It's now ongoing. Now the work begins. But really, it's not work. It's fun. But it is work for you because you're a caller, and your job is to make it fun for them. So it's not work for them, right? So you have the class going on. What do you do to maintain that relationship with your beginners, with the new dancers, so you as the caller has that bond with the dancers? You're not trying to get in the way of the club. The club has to also maintain that bond with them too, but you need to maintain that bond very, very personally with those dancers as well. The club is going to do their part to the extent that they can, and sometimes they may not do a good job. Sometimes you have cliques, and you have people who have adverse feelings toward beginners. We've all run into that, where clubs don't run beginner classes. So it's incumbent upon you to make sure that those beginners still continue to feel welcome every single week they're walking the door. And how can you do that? How can you reach out to them to do that? And here's some ideas. Here's some of the things I do. I generate and I maintain a roster of all the beginners in parallel with the club. The club's going to have their list of saying that people are checking in their the beginners as they walk in the door. I've got my list of those beginners. I've got it, and I keep it in my contact management system I use on my computer. So I've got all my beginners listed there, and I've got all their information about them. So I know who they are, and I maintain that list. And I will know if people are there or not there. I don't have to wait for the club to tell me, hey, did Susie show up or Susie didn't show up or whatever. I know if Susie showed up or not because I know I have that list. Because I have their email addresses, I put them all into a group, and I send emails out to the class every week. And that email to the class, hey, we're glad you're here. We had a great time. What's going on? You tell them what's going on. Here's what's going on. Thank you for coming. Thank you for registering. Here's some information about how the class is going to work. Now, you may have had a printout or a flyer or something like that handed out at the front, but you can tell people multiple ways. You can have a printout. You can just send an email. You can call them. You can tell them verbally. People like to hear the same information different ways because different modes sink in different ways to people. The email thing is a really important thing. If you can do that, if you can send an email out to your class every week, that really strengthens your bond. You'll also get feedback directly from them when they say, I can't do this anymore, you take me off the list because I have to drop out. You'll know immediately why. Then you can have a one-on-one conversation with them, what happened, you'll find out. But otherwise, you just have people that disappear, and you don't know why they disappeared. But when you have the email connection with them, you establish a one-to-one relationship. When you send the email out, BCC all the addresses. Nobody wants an email with everybody's address listed up there. It's really an invasion of privacy. I think it's really unfair to do that. So whenever I send out any kind of club emails, I always BC. Do you know what I'm talking about? Anybody not know what I'm talking about? You want a blind carbon copy of the addresses so nobody can see them. So let me give you some ideas of some of the content that I put in the emails. Okay, I'll put in we talk about invitation for the class. That's before the class starts. I put in a welcome email. Say, hey, thank you for coming. Welcome. Thank you for registering. That's another content item. I could do weekly call reviews. Now remember, this is their fun, your job, but their fun. They're not going to want to sit there and study this in a beginner class like a college class. That's not their objective. But you might want to give them, hey, we did this and this and this, and it was fun, and whatever, next week we'll look at this and this. And if you have any problems, come over and talk to me ahead of time, or you have any questions, just come and talk to me. We'll walk it through. It's pretty straightforward. You might want to start introducing to them that square dancing exists beyond this world of your class, that exists in other clubs and other classes as well, that there's a world out there. You're not isolated in this bubble of this one room, and there's a world of square dancing. And as time goes on, you're going to introduce them to the idea there's a bigger world of square dancing, because that's where it gets more exciting for them. Say, wow, it's not just this. I could go out and do this with other people too. You might want to talk, to the extent that you want to, you might want to talk a little about the square dance, the history of square dancing, in a positive light, not like, well, 10 years ago we said 50 squares here, now we only have 2 squares. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about, where did it come from, what's happened over the years. You might want to talk about the future of square dancing, and I don't mean future like a doom and gloom thing, but the future, this is a great class. We're really looking to build this class and do another class next fall and have all your friends come in, because we're just growing, like we're just going to have a whole lot of fun, because we're all about having fun and doing things. So you can talk about that future. You can talk about upcoming dances and special events. It's important for them as part of knowing there's a bigger square dance world out there, that there's not just this class. There's other classes, and when we all get together in a big group, it's like a lot of fun. And of course, in your emails, you can encourage them to bring in their friends to the next class. We always know the beginners bring in the next class much better. So, those are some ideas of content to put in your weekly emails. That's an idea. You can come up with your own content, but whatever you want to communicate to them in a positive way. This is not a forum for having any issues resolved or anything. You just want to keep touching them lightly, not heavy, just light touching. It's great to have you. Here's what's going on. Can't wait to see you next week. That kind of thing. You can use Facebook during the class. If you have a Facebook for either your club or for the beginner class, either one, you can post updates directly into Facebook. We talk about social media. You can use Twitter to send out messages if your class is so inclined. We haven't really had many people interested in Twitter in our areas, but you could just talk about sending out feeds to Twitter, some information. Class coming up Wednesday, see you there. Special dance coming Friday night, whatever. This one is cool. You can get pictures. So the class is going on. We have a beginner in our class who just loves a camera. That is great. She's out there taking pictures of everybody, and she's only in the class for a few weeks, a couple months. She's taking pictures right and left, and she's giving it to us, and we're putting it up on our Facebook page. Bang, 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 all the time. So it's like, hey, this is a dance. This is our regular class night. Or we had a special dance for something, and she's taking those pictures, and they're going up on the website. And then, of course, what do you do in your email out, your weekly email out to them? Hey, check the website, and you give a link to that, or check a link back to the Facebook page. Everybody loves to see their pictures. Yeah, we had a great time. It just shows the pictures of square dancing. Now, that's kind of all internal, but what it's doing is you guys are all the class. I just built more bond because we just saw a picture of all square dancing together, and here it is up on Facebook. That's really cool. And here's some names. They're all smiling and all that. So it's a fun thing to do. You can put it on Facebook. You can put them on the website. If they're a little video, people take videos, throw them on YouTube. Whatever it might be for social media. Claudia.
Question is do you get the permission first before putting their picture up?
I don't, because we're in kind of a public event for this thing, and the person taking pictures is obvious. They're not like hiding anywhere. They're walking around the floor taking pictures. We're talking about adults, so we're not talking about kids. You have a concern about that? You're wasting the microphone.
Claudia from Calgary. There's been a concern expressed, so I haven't taken any pictures because I don't want to get into trouble.
The other side of that is, Gary Felton, Maryland. The other side of that is that you get class members that are looking at their pictures, and they're talking to their friends. Oh, look here, see what we're doing. And you're getting that spread, instead of just in August, you're getting that spread all year long.
Skip Cleland, the panelist. If there's an issue that you think may come up because you're going to display pictures online on a Facebook page or whatever, address it. Just open the mic up and address it at your group and say, hey, we're going to take pictures and put them online. Anybody have an objection?
Bruce Holmes from Illinois. I've got a iPhone. I take pictures of everybody who's joining the class the first night out, and by the next week I've learned everybody's name, and it really helps.
Eva Murray, Maryland, and we have a dancer in our group who's taking pictures. And basically the way we've addressed your issue with people who have concerns is I edit all the pictures. I get all the pictures. I edit them, and I know which dancers in my class do not want to be on Facebook. So I simply post everything else, and I delete the pictures that show the dancer, actually 2 in my case, that have an issue. No one else does. It's a public place, but I take care of the dancers who are concerned. They simply sent me an email because I do email communication. So the question was, how did I know there was a problem? They communicated that to me personally. So in one case, someone sent me an email, and in the other case, they actually called. So I just address it one-on-one. But you've got to do that. It's great. It builds community.
Rick Hampton. Yeah, legal precedent is if you're in a public. I was in radio for decades. We would take thousands of pictures of everybody in attendance and put them on our put them on our website. We would do this on a daily basis. There's no need to not do. It's nice. It's real nice. If it is there was one person in all the years of doing this that came up to me and said, my ex-husband is stalking me. Please don't put any pictures up. I said, okay. It really, I think, it's a tiny minority, and I think it can be addressed individually. No, that's my 2 cents.
Skip, Cleland, the point where you start getting into a gray area when you're posting something online is if you have audio with it for a couple of reasons. One, it can be considered an invasion of privacy to record someone and then replay it without their permission or knowledge. And the other thing, too, is if you're recording copyrighted music, they can come after you.
Deborah Carroll Jones, Arlington, Texas. The comment was made by the gentleman in the front about taking pictures of the class people. I learned that from Eric a couple years ago. We were sharing information like mad about how to get our classes and what we were doing, and he said, I take a cell phone picture of every single new person or new couple that comes into the class. I thought that was brilliant because I could learn their names so much faster. And I just went up and had my cell phone. I said, may I take a picture just for me so I can learn everybody's name a little faster? Oh, okay. And they'd perk right up, and I'd get real close so I could get the badge in the picture too. So before class, I would flip through those pictures, and as soon as they walk in the door, I didn't have to look at a badge. Hey, Joe, come on down here. Your badge is down here in the front. And it made me look like a Marshall Flippo, like I could remember everybody's name. So I am very grateful for that suggestion, and I'm pleased to hear somebody else has done it as well.
One more note on the follow-up with the new dancers and everything and keeping them informed what's going on. This is not my idea. One of my new dancers brought this up. They really appreciate having the list of calls online and an indication of which ones they've been introduced to and when. And so now on my website and also linked to the club website, I have a page there that has exactly that information, all of the moves through the mainstream program and when they were introduced to that move. So they can go and look at it any time, or they can ask a club officer, what's the list? And they've got it available to them on their smartphone.
And does that list have like the name of the call?
Yes.
And does it have a hyperlink to Taminations?
Not yet. It's on its way.
A lot of them do. A lot of people do that. They put the name of it on, they click on it, you get a hyperlink right to Taminations. If you don't know what Taminations is, come and talk to me at the break. You pass a cell phone around in new classes, show people how to download. I'm not sure I would do that to download for new dancers. I think it might be a little intimidating, but yeah, no. Okay, we're talking about Taminations there. We have one more here.
Deborah Carroll again. One thing that I've done with our class before they're going to leave the nest where they've got their pin feathers and they're going to maybe go out to their first student dance, and I wrote up a paper that I give them. We have a little mini session where we sit down. It's called Leaving the Nest. And it says in the things, when you walk in, there's going to be people that are going to be expecting you to pay. Or maybe it's a student dance where you get in free, but the club has a honey pot or a split the pot. And it's considered good manners to buy that. That helps to support the club. They don't know what pre-rounds are. They don't know why they're supposed to be there at 7:30 when nothing happens for them until 8 o'clock. And so I just compiled all of this and put it into a document. We talk about it, and then they have it in their hot little hands to go home that night before they ever get out and into a situation. I don't want them to be blindsided by anything that's going to happen. Because if I've nurtured them along thus far, I'm like a mama bear about my new dancers. I'm very protective. So I felt that was a service that I, as the caller, could provide to them so they would know what to expect when they went out to another dance.
I was going to ask.
Great. Yeah,
do you have that online for download?
Do you have a document or something like that, or some list of what you do, or I mean, all the things, I don't know. Yeah, that's great stuff. That's totally great stuff. So if you want to email Deborah Carroll Jones, you can get the list of things that she tells her students as they are birthed into the world. You're teaching order too, yeah. So yeah. Well, it kind of does jump into the next subject, which is like special dances. We talked about special dance now, and so special dances, or whatever you call them, our area we call them hoedowns. But I think we're the only area of the country that calls them that. And some people call them halfway dancers or whatever, some kind of beginner dance, some dance out there for the beginners to go to, right? So do you promote them? Do you have the flyers on the table? Do you include them in your weekly email communications out to the dancers? Do you make sure they know about them? And then if you can you attend with them? We have a couple in our area. If we have a couple in our area, newer dancer dances, just like 2 for the entire year, maybe 3 if we're lucky. And they're pretty well attended, actually pretty large dances. One of them is the St. Patrick's. We're serving corned beef and cabbage. Everybody shows up to that one. But I attend that dance because it's put on by the Callers Association. So as callers, we put it on the dance, and so I'm going to be there. And my beginners are there, and they love it. They have a great time. They love dancing to all these new callers they've never danced to before. It's beginner level, so somebody that can dance. They enjoy the food. And, of course, they enjoy dancing in a square with me because you can actually dance, too. Because they think I can just call in, they think I can dance. But then I'll dance. We have a lot of single women, so I'm dancing with the different single women each tip, and they're all having a great time. So, it all works out. It strengthens that bond. They have a great time. So then they come back to class next week, and they tell everybody, wow, we went to the St. Patrick's dance last week. It was a great time. There were 200 people at the dance. There really were. And, they come back to class, and everybody kind of gets the story about the thing. So, hey, okay, put the next one, April 28th. It's on your calendar. Make sure you go to that one. It's going to be the big deal. So, do you promote those dances out there? Because it's really important to figure out what's out there and what's happening for the dance. And then, of course, if you can, whatever that dance is, you know where your newer dancers are. You can communicate with that caller. Here's what my dancers know. Let's make sure they have a good time. However you want to phrase it with them. But a lot of callers push the level. They say, oh, they know through 60. So we'll make sure we cover through 8 chain 4 and cloverleaf and all those calls. Well, they may have learned those calls last week, but they don't know them worth beans, right? So if you dial it back to like 50, 1 through 50, they're going to be much more successful because they know those calls. They're not going to know them very well to you because you're a new caller to them. They only know their beginner caller. So anything that somebody else is going to do has to be dialed back because you're a new voice and they don't understand what you're saying. So do you have anything to add on that one about the special dances?
A side trip on it. We've been calling these individuals all kinds of different names in here. They're none of them bad, but all kinds of different things. We've got students, we've got beginners, we've got new dancers, we've got newbies, I've heard. How do you refer to those people in your class? I insist in the club that I teach, they're new dancers. The first time they bow to their partner, they're a square dancer. And they're new dancers. They're not students. They're not newbies. They're not greenies or anything else. And I've had some flyers come in for new dancer dances with those kind of terms on them. And people don't like it. There are people who just really don't like that. So I found the most neutral thing I could use that indicates where they're at in the program, but not calling them anything less than a dancer. They're a new dancer. So that's one of my things that I do. And I actually send back to people who send me flyers that, some might find this offensive for whatever reason. So just, take care in how you're referring to these people. Had a hand.
I'm going to add something while you're going back there. So a lot of clubs in our area have a dangle underneath their badge that says new dancer, right? So there's a badge that says new dancer as a dangle. That's what they have. That's fine. One club in the Sacramento area, I got to love them because they got some really fun people in the newer class, and their badge says new dancer. Nude dancer. Nude space DANCER. Nude dancer. Because that's how they interpret it. Now, that's a fun group to be in, I'll tell you right now.
Scott Brown, this is so important. We really make a point of this. We do not call them students. We're the only club in Pennsylvania that does not call them students. We call them entry-level dancers. All of the people who start on the very first night from that point on are called entry-level dancers. All right? The next level after entry-level dancer is mainstream-level dancer. All right? The next level after that is plus-level dancer, so that's how we designate the tips. We say this is an entry-level tip. All right? And that means anybody who's an entry-level dancer can get up for that tip. The most important thing is integration. I do not want people recognized as new dancers, because when then they go out to a club, the first thing they say, these are new dancers. And then the people at the clubs come and say, oh, how old are you? You're so cute. We need more young people like you. And the first thing they do is they run out the door screaming because they're, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I see this all the time. But do not call them new dancers. I call them entry-level dancers because that's really what they are.
Thanks, Skip. Deborah again. Our club also gives out these new dancer dangles, and I haven't quite decided how I feel about those yet, so I'm glad to see this brought up. I've had students come to me and say, how long do I have to wear this thing? Okay, and so I have a little story that I tell him even when my father learned to square dance. What Daddy discovered, Daddy was never the sharpest knife in any square dance drawer when he was on the floor, okay? So what he realized is if he introduced himself, even without a dangle that said new dancer, he would constantly, hi, I'm Howard Carroll, I'm a new dancer. Howard Carroll, new dancer. And what he found out was people watched out for Howard, okay? Because you'd see those that would kind of go, oh, great. But he could still kind of hold his own, but he realized that the square would support him better if he identified himself thusly. So I share that story with my class people. That way, those that think, yeah, I could use that, they can go ahead and do that as long as they want. But those that don't, you don't have to wear it after class. It's it's totally up to you. So I'm interested if anybody else has any comments. Thank you. I'll shut up.
Only for the moment.
The way we handle Rick again. The way we handled that, our new dancer badge was identical to the club badge with the colors reversed. And if you just looked at it at that badge, it looked like a Sequoia Squares club badge. Their colors were green and white. The club badges was white background, green lettering. The class badges were green background, white lettering. But if somebody just walks in with that badge, you don't know. Oh, you dancing by Sally with Sequoia Squares, and that's you're a square dancer.
I think it's really helpful. Bruce Holmes, Evanston, Illinois. Bruce Holmes, Evanston, Illinois. I think it's really helpful to know if somebody in the square is a new dancer because I can kind of keep an eye out for them. But the converse of that is once some people know you're a new dancer, they will blame every mistake on you. And that's kind of a heavy thing to have on top of you because it's not always the new dancer's fault.
It's not always the new dancer's fault. You're right, but you know, it's kind of like training wheels. Like training wheels, that you take them off eventually. So yeah, that's something to figure out with the dancers on that one. Okay, we've done the special dance. We've done the class weeks. It's time for graduation at the end of the sessions. What do you guys do? So what happens? They've gone through something. I don't know. However you break down your lesson plans and your grouping. I'm assuming, by the way, that you have a lesson plan. I hope you have a lesson plan. And it'd be nice if you actually told them what the lesson was instead of having it be a mystery every week. I publish a class syllabus, so they have it printed form on the table the first night that they actually sign up for the lessons. Not the intro night, but the first night after that, where they do actually sign up for the lessons. And it says every week the calls are going to be taught. And to the best of my ability, I try to keep to that schedule. Sometimes that's not always possible. It's more important for me to keep the people happy than try to shove something down their throat. Okay, but I have a plan there, and at least they have the names of the calls there. I can include that as a PDF in the email that I send out to them from time to time. And of course, if I put it in the email link, I'd have a hyperlink right to Taminations. So there you go. So now it's the end of the session. So how do you recognize that accomplishment? You know, you're going to recognize it. You know, great, you guys have finished whatever you finished. In my case, I've finished the basic program for about 1 to 50 thereabouts for the first set. And here's what's coming up next. You know, so what we're going to do next is this. And look, I talk about the mainstream program, but I don't use those words. And usually there's another class going on that's just ahead of them, so they're going to be with you too in doing this thing. And we're going to continue on, and we're going to practice the calls we've already learned. We're going to keep introducing them to the bigger world of square dancing. We did this back in the special dances, but we say, you know, there's a bigger world. We got weekend dances, you know, whatever your weekend dances are called. We have festivals, we have national events, and where hundreds, if not thousands of square dancers get together, and it's a lot of fun, and it's just a blast, and you got to communicate that message to them. Like, wow, what you've learned these calls. Isn't this great? You can travel anywhere in the country and walk into a group that's advertised at X level, whatever that is, and dance with them because you already know those calls. You have instant friends everywhere in the country, even in the world, because it's all done the same way. And I explain that to them, how it's all done the same way everywhere in the world. I think, you know, I try to emphasize, if you travel, this is the greatest thing. So you move that. You encourage you encourage your new dancers to bring their friends in and say, isn't this fun? Remember, as long as they're new, they're going to bring their friends in. You wait 2 or 3 years down the road, their friends aren't coming. You know, it's not going to happen. But in that first 6 months, the first 4, 6, 12 months, they cannot wait to drag their friends into this thing. So then also ask for their input. Ask for their input and ideas. What did you like about how this worked? What worked well for you? And what could I do better? What can I do better now that we've finished this basic program, mainstream program, whatever it might be? What can I do better for the next class that you think would be helpful? It's okay to ask questions from them because nobody thinks like you do. No one thinks like you do. So the beginners are going to have their own way of hearing and thinking about things. I've learned so much in the last 3 years from my beginners about how to teach classes that has really helped in teaching classes. I teach classes differently now in the last 3 years than I've ever taught in the past because of input I got from the beginners. So it's really, really important. And when they have input, when they actually feel comfortable talking to you, they get relaxed. Hey, you know what? Why don't you try this? When you did this, I didn't understand, but you do this, I understand that. And they're relaxed. Now they're relaxed, they're comfortable with me, we're all happy, we're all comfortable, they keep dancing. And I keep that in mind. Never, ever say you've got all the answers about how to teach because they're going to come up with you, every beginner is going to come up with another idea about, well, if you just, you know, what I think in my mind when you say that, I just think this and this and this. And you think, okay. And even if your mind, you think that's not right, that's not the correct way of doing the call, it works for them and you have to think what they're thinking, put yourself in their shoes. So ask for that input from your dancers. So you've completed the class. Ask how you can do it better next time.
I try and establish, Bruce Holmes, Evanston, Illinois. I try and establish that the first night of class, that tell me what you're thinking, let me know what I could do better, and it just creates this channel back and they start feeling like they can talk to me.
Skip Cleland, that is part of my introduction to the class, is that they're there to learn something fun and new, and part of what I get out of it is they're going to teach me something for sure. Even though I've been doing this for 30 years, I'm going to learn something new, and I'll greatly appreciate it in the end.
Never underestimate, and never think you can stop learning. You can always learn I learn from people every day. I learn something from somebody. So you've gone through that. Now it's ongoing. Now they've joined the club. Isn't that great? They've joined the club. They're going to come there. You're going to be there every weekend. You get to see your friends and all that stuff. It's really fun. And you got their picture, like Deborah said. You get the picture right there, and it's attached to their contact in your iPhone. So every time they call you, the name shows up. There's that smiling face of that picture. What do you do for regular communications with them? So what I do is I do the same thing I do with a class. I've got an email that goes out to the club. Here's a club, like not a newsletter. The newsletter is separate, but it's a club email, a weekly communication or bi-weekly communication. I use graphics. I have some nice HTML font to throw on top of it. I slap it on there and I type some stuff in down below. Upcoming dances, upcoming festivals, upcoming specials. When's the next class going to start? Oh, by the way, we're collecting money for the food bank. Whatever it might be, those kind of things. What kind of so-and-so caller is having a whatever, and this club over here is having something, or, Susie, did something, or maybe something about like somebody has a medical issue or some other tragedy that you want to communicate. Oh, we'll have a card up here to sign for Joe because Joe broke his hip or something like that. So there's people who need to know that information. You're going to promote dances. You're going to use your weekly communications to promote the dances that come up, the festivals, the hoedowns, the specials, whatever you call them. You're going to talk to them about, hey, you're pretty smart, Wade. Could you help us on the board? We need some more people on the board that for some new ideas, some fresh ideas. We need someone who could be a treasurer or a secretary. Would you serve on the board? It's really easy to do that. We have a board of directors, and they're the ones that actually make the club run. If it's a club-run club. If it's caller run, you don't worry about that. But if it's a club-run club, you need to have some fresh faces on the board. How many clubs have boards that are the same people every year after year after year, and they're all kind of burned out? They're all kind of worn into a rut. They always do it because nobody else will do it, right? And then they're kind of burned out doing it. And you want to get some fresh faces in there so you can get those people off the board saying, just get back to dancing. So invite them to participate in the leadership of the club, because really, you need to talk to them about what that is. And you can also ask them to attend the board meetings. I'm sure every one of your board meetings is an open board meeting, right, for your club. So when your club has a board meeting, say, come on down and just sit in for, give your ideas. We're not going to make it a big deal. It's not a formal thing. It's pretty easy going. We're just a square dance club, and we just need some leadership. So ongoing. What do you do to keep your dancers going ongoing and communicate with them? How do you connect with them ongoing? Anybody else have any thoughts on that one?
On the notifications, sending out the who's doing what dance, what callers in the area, who's got a special Thanksgiving dance, whatever. How would you like to have other people do it for you? In the D.C. area, there's a Yahoo group called Waska Dances. And you can sign up on it, and it has some rules. It's about square dancing and things that impact square dancers in the area. Sometimes there's some personal things going on there, but it's usually about a square dancer, and it's getting the news out. Somebody's got something going on. And people put their flyers on it, and they go out. So everybody that's signed up on it sees every flyer that goes on that thing. I was so impressed with it that when I moved to Decatur, Alabama, I started NASDAQ dances, NASDAC, played on it, and it's working. It's people are getting on board with it. It takes a little while, but people start seeing it, and they realize they can put their flyers on it and send it out to all these other people in the area. You want to keep it to a zone. I mean, if you start doing stuff that's 200-300 miles away, they're going to start looking at it as spam. But if it's pertinent stuff, you got other people doing your job for you. It's wonderful.
I'll make it easier. Gary Felton, Maryland, we have two groups there now. One of them is also in the Baltimore area, and they run about 500 people on one group and about 700 or 800 on the other group. So you're getting out to a huge number of people, and they know they have a little link at the bottom tells them how to unsubscribe if they don't want it.
In the D.C. area, it's an issue if you've got to drive 20 miles to a dance. In Decatur, Alabama, it's not an issue to drive 100 miles to a dance. So you got to judge your zone also. I saw him.
Something just that you mentioned was how do we handle graduation, or how do you handle graduation? And we've had some issues with that, so we've changed the way we handle it. I said we don't identify them as students from the very first night. So if they're not students, then there's no graduation. That's the first problem, okay? So what we do is we wait till they reach a point where they're dancing the end of the mainstream program, or they're at the end of the mainstream program, and we'll say, are you interested in a badge? We'll get them a badge, and we'll hand them a badge and say, this is because you've made it through the mainstream program, or you've been here this given number of times. All right, and so we don't, and so they're never identified as students. We don't have a formal graduation because in my area, anyways, that can be really demeaning to people who are just graduating. I've seen them take dances, they blindfolded, make them dance with sacks on their feet. And the thing is, if they want to do that, I don't have a problem with them doing a fun night for the whole club, and they can do that kind of thing. But when they single out all the new dancers and make them do things that is called hazing when I was in college. There's no difference. Hazing into square dancing. When you do that, that's exactly what it is.
Skip Cleland, you also made a comment there about when you graduate them, they've completed so many moves. How many of you notice and I want to see a show of hands on this one, how many of you notice that you get through one program and you do a graduation and all of a sudden you lost half your people? They didn't come back. Why? So I see a couple of hands. My technique is I get the club to do our graduation and have them join the club before they finish mainstream. And at that point, we tell them, we're going to go ahead and we want you to go ahead and join the club. We know you're all going to stay here and hang in there with us, and you're going to be really welcome to the club. And we're going to get through the rest of this stuff during the club dances. I haven't lost a person since starting to do that. Because they don't the next week say, oh, I can take a break. I don't have to go learn something. If you let them do that, they won't come back, some of them.
How many times have you gone back to your high school since your graduation?
So we're almost out of time here. I just want to wrap up with the last couple of things here. Types of communication, right? What are your types of communication that you have to your dancers, your new dancers, your club members? You have a club newsletter, right? The club usually puts that out. You could have a hand in that. You have email, right? Phone calls. You can call them up, see how things are going. You've got a website, right? Either Facebook or the club website, either one, right? You could do Twitter. You can actually write a letter, postal mail. Remember that with a stamp? Stick it on there. You can do that. Any other ways you can do that. So you think of other ways that you can reach out to your dancers. Do not underestimate the power of communicating to your dancers and making that bond with them. They like to know that you know who they are. And they like that because then they feel, wow, I know your name. You know my name. That's really cool. We know each other, and I feel important now. I want to come back every week. That's what I have for Class Connections today. Thank you all for coming out. Have a great rest of the session, okay?